Yeah, hi there, and these comments are for Rafaat, and you're one of my students. And good luck tomorrow. You're taking the IBT on Friday, January 25th, and you want some practical advice and encouragement to be ready to do the best on the test, so please send me quickly some advice today. Here I am. Now, number one, you've worked hard, you've done a lot. So what you're trying to do tomorrow is to use your existing English abilities to get the highest possible score that you can. That's exactly what you're trying to do. So here's what's going to happen tomorrow. Here's what you want to be aware of. As you know, there are 4 sections of the test. Let's talk about the reading section. Use your notes and try to summarize each paragraph of the passage in 4 or 5 words at most. This would be one of my recommendations. This helps you to remember the main ideas of each paragraph, and it should make it easier if you want to find any specific information. Remember, Rafaat, don't reread and reread over and over. You don't have enough time for that. So what you're trying to do is create a sort of map or reference of the reading passage. So your notes need to be brief because the clock is ticking. So here's an example of how you can make a map of a reading passage. So let's say that you have a reading passage about Leonardo da Vinci. You might put paragraph 1, Leonardo, birthplace, childhood. Paragraph 2, you put first paintings, influences. Paragraph 3, most famous painting, Mona Lisa. Paragraph 4, you might put final years, legacy. That's your map. You create a short map of what you want to do, and then when you're asked questions, you already know which paragraphs focus on which things, and you know exactly where you need to go to find those answers. Now, in most cases, I don't recommend reading the entire passage before you start answering the questions. It's probably a good idea to read the first and last line of each paragraph, then go immediately to the first question. Alright, do the best you can, and remember that the best answer in the reading section is typically a restatement of what was said in the reading passage, but it doesn't use exactly the same words. Alright, let's go on to the listening section. I think, like the reading, you need to make good use of your notes. Try writing down as much information as you can while the conversation is going, but be careful. Try to pick the overall ideas from what you're hearing. You need to separate the most important ideas from the least important ideas. Now, some parts are a dead giveaway of what the questions will be like, so don't forget to note things like, number 1, the person's own opinion about a topic. How does he or she feel about it? Number 2, the order in which events unfold. So if you hear the lecture talking about a sequence of events, you know they're going to ask you that question. So make sure you get those events down in the right order. 3, detailed information or description of a certain program or object. That's also a very likely question. And then 4, comparing or contrasting 2 or more things. Remember, these small details are contained within the most important questions, the ones which are 2 or 3 points. So be careful. After the listening section, you have a 10-minute break. I would bring some type of energy bar. It might be a power bar. It might be an apple if you get energy from that. But something that you think will give you some energy because you're going to need it. Remember, you're only halfway done now. Now, in the next 2 sections, the speaking and the writing, that you'll be asked to give your own opinion, and you have to report what you've heard or read. So make sure, Rafaat, read the questions carefully and do exactly as you're being asked to do. Now, be careful during the speaking section. Don't say words like this, like that, things, or stuff. Make sure that you use transition words. You try to use college level words to help explain your ideas, and I know you've been studying vocabulary, so I think you can do that. Now, the next thing is, with the speaking, it's more important that you're organized and you have some sort of plan, then you speak with a perfect accent or write every word correctly. So obviously that's why you've been practicing at my website, is to make sure you know how to organize your speaking and your writing responses. Now for the speaking section, try to use a certain template. You've been practicing what we call stock answers and ways of beginning your independent and your integrated speaking tasks. So make sure tomorrow that you try to use that type of template to answer those independent and integrated writing tasks. Alright, so I think that'll be important for you. And also remember, make good use of your notes during the speaking section. In fact, speaking task number 3, it will be reading, listening, speaking casual. Speaking task 4 is reading, listening, speaking academic. In both cases, when you're doing your notes, Rafaat, you might take a sheet of paper. See if I can give you an example of how you can do this. So in the paper right here, you're going to draw a line down the middle, something like that. Do this. Now on the left side, put reading. On the left side, put the lecture. Now the first thing you want to do for the reading is to list the topic, and then maybe 3 points that you think are important in supporting that topic. Then for the listening, do the same thing. So it might be something like that. Again, you have the reading, try to list what you think the topic is, and then with the listening, list what you think the topic is, and then try to put down maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 points underneath each heading that support each of those points. And then when you're asked to speak about it, using your notes, try to explain what you think the connection is between the listening and the reading. So you can do that for both speaking task number 3 and 4. So I think that your notes are absolutely fundamental in that part of the test. Now with speaking task number 5, you will be asked to listen and then speak about some campus-related idea. So think about, what's the purpose of the conversation? Why are these people talking? So that becomes the main idea. And then what are some of the most important points of that particular conversation? Now, it's possible they may ask you in speaking task 5 what your opinion is. Maybe one speaker is proposing a solution to help another person who has a problem. And then you might be asked your own opinion, what you think of the solution. So be prepared that you may be asked that. And then speaking task 6 is a lecture. So you'll typically be listening to a process or the steps and how something happens. And obviously you want to write those things down in note form. And then you want to be able to explain those things when the time is right. So those would be some basic suggestions during the speaking part of the test. Remember that you need a topic statement to begin all of your independent and integrated speaking tasks, and then make sure the key points in the speech connect back to that topic statement. That's going to give your speech an overall organization. Okay, now writing. The best advice I can give you really with the integrated writing section is this. Again, using your notes. Draw a line down the middle, kind of what you did before with the IBT integrated speaking task, and put the topic of the reading, put the topic of the lecture. That's kind of on the top. Now, the reading will introduce typically 3 key points. And then the lecture will disagree with each of those points. So we have what's called a point, a counterpoint. A point, counterpoint, a point, a counterpoint. So then you'll be asked, how does the information in the lecture cast doubt or disagree or contradict the information in the reading? So the first paragraph doesn't have to be very creative, and remember, do not state your own opinion here. You're simply answering the question as it relates to the 2 sources. But the topic or the first paragraph needs to explain the connection. Show how the lecture is different from the information in the reading. So your introduction maybe is only maybe 25 or 30 words. You might say the topic of the reading passage is blah, blah, blah. And then the listening contradicts this idea in 3 fundamental ways. And then you can get to each point. You can state what the first claim is in the listening, and then you can show how the reading passage is different from that. Then you can explain the second contradiction, I think, in the lecture, and then you can show how the reading is different from that. Then you can go on to the last one, right? So you could probably develop a 3-paragraph response here, in the sense that you have your introduction, then you have your 3 points and counterpoints you might do in the body, or if you want, you can do more than 1 paragraph with that, depending on how you want to do it. Then you might have a conclusion. Now, I think the most important thing here is make sure you don't leave out any important points in the lecture. Don't miss any important information there. You want to show what that relationship is to the reading. So that would be some of my advice on the integrated writing task. Now, you know and I know that you still struggle a little bit with some vocabulary and some grammar and a few organizational issues. So remember, in the middle of your paragraphs, you want to be more specific. Don't use general type words. Be as specific as you can. Okay, now, after the first 20 minutes of the writing, then you make a transition and you get to the independent writing task. You'll have 30 minutes. Now, with the integrated writing, you're trying to write approximately 200 to 250 words. Now, with the independent writing, I recommend that you try to write more than about 350 words for that response. In this case, I think your first paragraph needs to be longer than the integrated writing paragraph, your introduction there. So maybe between 50 and 100 words. Make sure that you have a thesis at the end of that first paragraph, and don't include a really overly general thing, I agree or I disagree because of 3 reasons. I don't like that kind of a thesis. It's very general. It's a stock answer. It doesn't make your essay any different than the thousands of other people who take the test every week. So you want to show that you have a unique way to begin the introduction. You know how to create a sharply focused thesis, and you're not afraid to do it in your writing. Now, once you've created that thesis, make sure that it restates the question you're being asked, and it introduces maybe 2 or 3 key points. Now, from your writing, you're comfortable just doing 2 points, but the problem is, Rafaat, is when you only introduce 2 points, your writing has a tendency to be around 250 to maybe 310 words. So it's hard for you to get 350 words with just 2 main ideas or 2 reasons. So if you introduce 3 key ideas or 3 reasons, then it's probably easier for you to reach the 350 word limit that I think is better for the independent writing task. Now again, you have your thesis in the first paragraph. Make sure the topic sentences in the first line of those body paragraphs are restating a key point in that thesis. Now your weakness is you actually organize things pretty well, but when you get into the middle of your paragraphs, you have a tendency to use very general vocabulary. And you don't want to do that. You want to get specific. Try to think of a specific example that you can use that can support the argument that you're trying to prove there. So again, specificity. Supporting your generalizations with specific details, I think, is a great strategy, and that's going to help you. So in both cases, with the integrated and independent writing tasks, obviously try to control your grammar and your vocabulary. I mean, you're going to make mistakes, everybody does, right? So, but try to minimize some of those errors. And you're pretty aware of some of your mistakes, right? I've done some videos, I've done a lot of corrections showing you changes and things that you can make. You've seen this dozens of times, so you're aware that you do make errors, and hopefully when you're doing the test, you'll try to avoid some of those, all right? We'll pray, right? We'll pray that you avoid some of those. All right, so anyway, that's pretty much my advice of what I would give you for tomorrow. So hang in there. Remember, don't do anything crazy tonight. Don't try to study all night long or anything like that. Eat a nice healthy meal. Try to get a good night's rest. And in the morning, eat a modest breakfast. Don't eat a huge breakfast. But just eat a good breakfast. It's going to give you some energy. And remember to bring a snack, so after the listening section, when you have a 10-minute break, you can eat that snack right about that time to give you energy, for the last two sections of the test. All right, good luck tomorrow, Rafaat. And again, thank you for being one of my students. You're a great student, and I wish you all the best tomorrow on your IBT TOEFL exam.